So I'm really excited to bring back a guest that I had on a couple of years ago, and I was absolutely buzzing that you agreed to come on back then because we spoke so much about your career. And genuinely, I said to Rob, your manager, last week, it's always stood out as one of my favorite interviews I've ever done. So welcome back on the show, Matt.
Thank you, man, very much. Yeah, I love talking to you too. You're as dapper as ever. So
Do you know, I've got to say, just wanting to quickly talk about Strictly. I'm a massive fan of the show, and every year you anticipate the announcements coming out, and with Strictly, you know some of them and you don't, and you always hope for a big name on there. And when they announced that you were going on, I just stopped at my phone and I thought, wait, I was like, no way, that there's absolutely no way. And I was just gassed that you were going to be doing Strictly. And I looked at the comments and everybody was kind of saying the same thing. This is the biggest name they've ever had. You know, everyone was just shocked that you were doing the show. So what made you say yes to Strictly? Because I imagine they must have asked you a lot in the past.
yeah, they've definitely asked me a lot, but I think that when you live in America and you think about the commitment it may require, which is potentially 4 months, it never like added up. And also I knew that after having the number one independent record in the country and top 10 album, and I was in the park playing frisbee, and I just thought, my God, I'd love to be here with my dog and move here and just come back home. And then Strictly was kind of the thing that said, yeah, this is the right time. That we were planning on coming back, but it all just seemed right. And then yeah, it was challenging. It was an amazing experience, but really it was one of the reasons I came back, and quicker than I maybe would have done. But yeah, it was definitely an incredible reaction from the British public, and I'm surrounded by love and surrounded by care and just an understanding that I need as a man and as an artist.
I mean, I thought you did really well. And the thing is with you, and you could tell it when anyone who watched the documentary about Bros, you're such a perfectionist, and anything that you do, you really invest all your time and you put everything into that. And you could see that with Strictly because the focus and determination you had was incredible. And that's what I wanted to ask you. When it comes to the judges' feedback and the critiques, for all week, you've worked so hard on the dance. You've put every hour into that to then go out there and have four people sit back and constructively critique, sometimes not as constructive.
Yeah.
How did you find that for someone that is such a perfectionist to sit back and hear critiques every week?
I think thank you for that observation and the question. I think that it's challenging. It's humbling. Obviously, you're there to be critiqued. That's why you're on they're experts in their field. I think for me personally, I have my own show for 11 years, and I have dancers, and I critique them and block the stage and make sure everything's working correctly. I'm the musical director, so I understand the musicality of it. So I think sometimes the comments to me, one thing that Shirley said before the dance off, she said to me, "You cannot make one mistake." That didn't motivate me. That because otherwise you're Fred Astaire, and I'm sure even Fred Astaire made mistakes. I think that put a certain pressure on the kind of that comment was where I felt like I'd had enough of because that's just not a goal that I ever want to achieve, let alone as a musician. I don't think you should ever say I've written the perfect song. I think because that's what that last. I think to your dying day, I don't think any true artist wants to create the perfect song, or the perfect dance, or the perfect painting. Otherwise, we stop. And so I think that that's the only time that I felt like I didn't relate to
Yeah.
something as a critique. But the rest, in regards to my posture and stuff, that it was definitely helpful. But I also have Poland syndrome, so I can't quite get that round, big, robust. I box and I stay lean, and but yeah, it was a journey. It's like it was definitely an interesting experience. I loved meeting new friends. I went out for dinner with Tony Adams the other night with his lovely wife, and Kay Adams is wonderful, and they're all really, really lovely people. You know, they're just people that I've stayed in touch with, and I believe a couple of the people coming from the show that will be lifelong friends.
Well, I thought you were brilliant. You just had the musicality, the charisma, and you look so at ease on stage. And I mean, people will know that from your time in Vegas, but you were just such a natural. And I think you went too early, because Strictly for me is watching people like Helen, you know, overcome and actually work and progress. And I really felt you had more to give, and I think you went way too early. And I know that's shared by the majority of Strictly fans.
Thank you, mate. I mean, I feel like it was ironic because I was actually starting to really enjoy the environment the week that I actually did get voted off, and yeah, it's you take it on the chin, and next experience. I mean, I think that yeah, it would have been nice to see how I would have unfolded it. I think more personally, can get out of my own way and of being somewhat uncomfortable around the continuous filming and just like that. That's not really how I operate in my life. But so I was enjoying certainly the makeup department, you know, the Lisa and Lisa in hair and makeup and the wardrobe, and just really wonderful people. Just really cared, you know, they really care. And then, but yeah, I would like to have stayed on, but that's just not the nature of the show, and it was my time to go.
Well, another thing I've got to talk about is, of course, your most recent album, The Beautiful Unknown. And for me, but listening to the track, it really, for me to find you as an artist, it feels very personal, and the lyrics are so relatable. And so that's why I want to talk about the album. When you started the project to write this, did you go in there and think, right, do you know what? I'm going to let this all out. I'm going to be me. I'm going to be authentic, and this is one of my most personal albums yet, because that's how it felt and it came across.
Yeah, I think again, thank you so much for taking time to listen to the album. But it's yeah, The Beautiful Unknown in particular is definitely an attempt, at least my attempt, to remove fear from where we are, and we don't not often think of the unknown as something to be excited about. We've been kind of programmed, certainly coming back from America, where success is such a great word and you can achieve anything, as that's kind of the quote unquote American dream. I think we can take certain things from all countries, and I think that's one of the things that I love, the optimism, you know, and I think that I would like to be one of this country's optimists and gentlemen that just tries to push people forward with the belief system that what we don't know is we don't need to fear. You know, if I say to you, I'm looking forward to see you, we kind of look at it just as an expression. But if you think looking forward to see you, it's all about our horizons. And if we individually have this optimism, I think collectively we'll somehow elevate each other. And that's what I want to be. I'd love to be one of those forces.
I mean, sometimes with a new album, you listen to it, it's catchy, and you don't really pay attention sometimes to the lyrics. It's just the melody. But with this album, it was definitely the lyrics and the melody for me. And it was Unafraid was the song that I just related to for some reason. You listen to it, you sit back, and you just think, wow, it was such a powerful track. What did that track mean to you, and what's the kind of story behind Unafraid for you?
On Spotify, I think it's one of the most played songs on the album. So I'm really glad, because I love that song. That's probably the song that I would love radio, certainly national radio, to get behind as well. Independent radio across the country have always supported me, and I'm so grateful for that. Otherwise, I think I would have just been creating all these orphans that don't get heard. But Unafraid is an anthemic record, and it's a great pop record, and it's again that to be unafraid of to remove the removal of fear within love and relationships. And like, you only have one chance to say I love you. You only have one chance for you to have your first date and your dinner, your first kiss, your first, all these things that we might be caught up in because of the nerves and all that. But if you just settle yourself and go, I'm going to just really embrace these moments, because they will only come once. And I'll also say that the person you fall in love with, or you might get used to them a little bit, and you might know each other's idiosyncrasies, but they are still the same person that you saw from across the room, or you couldn't wait to kiss them when you were having your first date at dinner, they are still that person. So I think sometimes we must not forget the people that we're with, even if it's for a long time. Just remember they are still that person that you couldn't wait to kiss and hold their hand and, and see the next day that, so sometimes we must just remind ourselves of that.
And it's good. This is why I love getting you on the show because, I see a lot of interviews with you. And of course, everybody wants to talk about Bros. It was such a big part of your life, one of the biggest bands ever. But when you actually step back and look at what you've done since and what you're doing now, that for me is what jumps out. And I think it is to your huge fan base now who have followed you because you've kind of grown with your music and we've seen various stages of your life. And it comes across now that you're actually content, you're happy, you're where you want to be, and that's another message for me that came through for the album.
Well, I think people like yourself who are emotionally intelligent and actually observe and actually research and just you make what I do so much more pleasurable because we're having an emotional intelligent conversation rather than just Q&A, one question get an answer, one question, and that can be an exhausting thing after being in the industry for over 3 decades. If you don't speak to somebody that is invested in what you do in some way or understands you in some way and they take the time to research you, it's a joy. So the pleasure is really mine on interviews like this where I'm talking to a fellow gent, which I know you are, and I know I get a sense that you also pride yourself on being a gentleman too. So, it's we find each other, man. We just find each other.
Well, I'm excited because I am going to be going to one of the dates. But the Matt Goss Experience, you're back on tour next year. Now, this feels like it's going to be exciting because you've got an orchestra. It just feels like it's going to be grand. It's going to be special. And after the last couple of years, that's what people need. And it's huge. I mean, you've got dates everywhere: Manchester, Newcastle, Swansea. You're doing a Royal Albert Hall in London. I'm going to come and see you in Bristol. How excited are you?
To be honest with you, the main thing that I've got coming back is the British public have been so kind to me, and there is this extended family energy that I have around me. Like I can't even explain how it is to the way people when I bump into people and just the sheer amount of selfies and conversations, and I think that's really maybe what I got into this for back all those years ago. And I'm in a situation now where I get to see people across the entire country in Scotland, all the way down through the UK and Ireland, and in the past I've tended to do shows mainly in London and then go back to the States and do my shows. But now I have not given enough time, and I want to bring this massive show. Honestly, it's the MG Big Band and the Royal Philharmonic all on stage, and to create this big sound. I know that you're going to bring your A game. I just want people to get dressed up. I want it to be boozy in the interval. I want it to be flirtatious. I want it to be fun. I'm proud to be a man, and I'm proud to be an entertainer as a man on stage. The flirtation, the testosterone, the energy that I want to bring is palpable on stage. That's what I do. And I love that the fellas come to my shows dressed up to the nines. The fellas bring their wives, their future ex-wives, they bring their girlfriends. The ladies get dressed up. They bring their fellas. Sometimes they go for a girls' night, but it's definitely, I would say 50-50 guys and girls now. And that's also a nice thing. The fellas are really enjoying coming to my shows because it's got that testosterone, that swagger to it. And I like being that fella. I've been that fella for a long time. So it's exciting for me that I get to hopefully bring this across the country, So.
And I'm going to be coming to see you in Bristol. It's the local venue here, and I'm really excited to come and watch you and see what you do. I really am.
I'm glad, and I think it's very immersive. You're gonna see that you're gonna be around like-minded people, and I feel like you're just gonna be saturated in this musical experience. I mean, it's a massive sound. I mean, and I can't wait to sing again. And know that I've got many shows to do. And certainly, obviously, venues like the Royal Albert Hall, which I love playing at. I went for a walk the other day and just looking at how I'll be there in March. It's a nice feeling, to be home and looking at venues close to my home.
And I interview people, and I'm lucky I get to interview people a lot. And with some musicians, for them, sometimes it can be more about money. And what I mean by that is the show will just be them singing some hits, and you don't have to. There's less expense. But with you, you've got, like you said, your own band, the orchestra. This really is going to be huge. You've put the show first, and I think that's what people are going to love with this.
Well, again, thank you for even that observation. I mean, it is a massive undertaking, and yes, it cuts into your bottom line. Without question, it cuts into your bottom line what you take home. But what's more experience? What's more important to me, that or the experience? I know that people will go, "Wow, what an experience! What a massive experience of music!" And then I hopefully people will understand what I do, and then they'll come back again. I have to invest. I have to invest in it because I want to elevate. I want to transport audiences. I want people to come to my show the next day and feel completely re-energized and reset from their worries. And I know I have the energy, and I know that's what I do as an entertainer. And you do 4 shows a week for 11 years in a venue where some people come and they're absolutely not Matt Goss fans. They just come because they heard about the show. They're the people that really intrigue me and make me want to be a better entertainer, because you can see them sitting there with their arms crossed, and I'm just like, I'm coming after you. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, I'm coming after you.
Yeah.
So, it just reminds you why you're in the game is, and you just have to burn your ego and get on and really, really connect with your audience.
And that's what you do ultimately very well, because I said it in our last interview. Watching a documentary, that's when I connected to you, because you let your emotion out. You kind of, if you felt frustration, we saw everything. There was no hiding behind a camera or trying to mask and be the perfect person. You were just the real you, the authentic you. And I think so many people watched that documentary and thought, wow. And then I discovered your new music and I realized, okay, he's incredible. The lyrics are relatable. And I think so many people like me discovered the real you from that show, the documentary.
Oh, thank you, man. Yeah, I think again, like that we could have easily have done Aren't We Great documentary that just would have been quite boring and very linear. But I think the reality is about the music industry. It's one of the most tumultuous, um, treacherous environments I've ever experienced. I mean, I love making music and I love being on stage, but I really am not a fan of the music industry. It's it's ever changing and not in favor of music, and certainly not in favor of maybe artists and not. I'm a more mature artist now, and so you just have to find ways of staying in love with it. And the way I do is live, having moments like this where we can have good conversations where you feel understood, operative word again, where you feel understood as an artist, and people take the time. But yeah, I feel very blessed, man. I've had a long journey. It's incredible where the voice takes you. I just sang for the President of the United States, Joe Biden. I've had lunch with Princess Diana, I've hung out with the Stones. I've won the Icon Award. I've just won Brits. It just keeps going. But I also am proud of my philanthropic work. I was awarded the United Nations Humanitarian Award.
Wow.
And I want to continue to contribute. And part of that contribution is also bringing your A game and trying to create experiences and being the maker of memories. Many thousands of people came out to see me in Vegas, and they all said to me, I would not have come out here if it wasn't for you. And then they made friends there. And I think when people come on the Matt Goss Experience Tour, I think you'll end up all making new friends, and it becomes like this beautiful universe of cool people. It's just, nice people,
Well, Matt, I'm excited to come and see it myself. And tickets are available at mattgosstour.com. We're going to put the link just at the bottom of this video. And I urge people to come and see your show, because I know that, like you said, the people with their arms crossed, you're going to convert those into fans, because
yeah.
You've got the ability to do that. You've got, like, it was actually looking at how you dressed on that documentary, I thought, you know what, there's no excuse to. Nothing wrong with tracksuits, I wear them at home, but I'm going out on my A game, because if you look good, you're going to feel good. And yeah,
it's impossible to overdress on this show. And it's also seeing you now, like, you know, with your logo and the way you look. It's just that you'll never go wrong doing that, mate. It's just, it is a good place to be a gent and take pride in how we feel and look. And I think it's an important ingredient to life because it just gives you a reason. Even through COVID, I remember just getting ready every day. I just got ready every day because it just kept my mind in a sane place, you know.
Well, Matt, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate your time. I know you're very busy at the moment, so thanks for coming on again and taking part in the show today.
And please, please come and say hello in Bristol. You're coming to, right?
Yeah, Bristol.
Well, let's raise a glass to the beautiful unknown in Bristol.
Definitely.